Welcome to Studio Chatter. I'm Craig Reeves. We have come to the season finale of this podcast. And what does that mean? Well, it literally means the podcast will be back in 2 weeks. I'm taking a vacation, so I won't be able to record, but once I get back, programming will continue, I promise. At any rate, this guest might definitely be sufficient to tide you over until then, and that is none other than the great Neon Vines. Neon Vines is not only a highly accomplished multi-instrumentalist and vocalist, she is also a fantastic producer and songwriter. She has become a YouTube sensation, where her virtuosic live looping performances have gone viral, stunning online audiences and endearing her to over 176,000 subscribers on her channel and over 11 million views total. She has worked with brands such as Sweetwater, StudioDesk, Akai, Roli, and so many others. She also shined on Andrew Huang's 4 Producers 1 Sample show with a full-on pop smash. But she is now taking on a next big step creatively. She is working on her debut album as Neon Vines, and she's hoping to have it out by next year. I can't wait to ask her about that. We talk about how she has been able to find success and how you might be able to find some success of your own. So without further ado, let's get to it. Neon Vines, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Oh, thank you. So this has actually been a while coming. We have been planning on doing this discussion for a while. And I remember when we first met each other, you know, it's always cool when somebody that you're such a big fan of happens to like your music. And I remember when we first met each other, the entire time we were like, oh, you're so awesome. No, you're so awesome. And then so it was actually a pretty fun time when we first met each other.
Yeah, that was awesome to hear your music. Seriously, it was amazing. You need to send me a link to that stuff, though, because I lost it somehow after the chat.
Oh,
so I would love to.
I will definitely
get a link
send
to
it
that.
to you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I would just say that you have been away for a little bit. You haven't been as active on social media, which is not a bad thing because I haven't either. And I'm thinking at this point, Neon Vines has accomplished so much already. Have you just run out of lands to conquer, or are you? I
kind of go through phases of what is most interesting to me. So last year was like my brand work, sponsorships, endorsements kind of phase, I guess. And it's not to say like it won't happen again, but I'm just not as inspired by that right now. Right now, this year, I've kind of been focusing on my own stuff. So that's sort of the wave that I'm riding. And yeah, that's where my interest lies these days. But social media, I'll come back to it eventually. But I think everybody can kind of relate to needing a break from it every now and then. So I sort of needed a break from it after last year.
Definitely. I've actually been taking a little bit of a break from social media myself. Yeah. And I can tell you, it has been, and it's only been for a couple of days. Yeah. But my God, it is one of the most liberating things I've done this entire year.
Yes.
Yeah. Because first of all, you realize how many more hours in the day you have.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
For sure.
Because I used to always think, wow, I just don't have time to do anything. You know what I mean? And that turns out not to be the case. We spend so much time on social media. And quite frankly, I probably spend less time than the average person does. So I can definitely relate to that. You're working on an album, right?
Yes. So that's kind of why I'm taking a break, I guess, because when I'm in a creative mindset, the last thing I want to do is compare myself in any way to what's happening in the outside world. So I try to kind of stay in my own bubble when I'm working on anything creative, music, whatever it might be. And I find that taking a break from social media during times like that is just, it's only a benefit. It only helps me. So I don't know. There's something about social media that kind of takes you outside of yourself. And I think that's not really helpful during times when you're trying to figure out what you want to say. and how you want to say
Absolutely.
it. So, yeah.
And a lot of the times it's social media, you kind of almost, at least for me, almost feel like you're living vicariously through other people.
Definitely.
And yeah, I get that too.
Yeah, and it's frustrating when you're working on an album that you know is going to take some time to finish, and I'm not a jealous person per se, but I think all of us kind of feel the pressure of seeing other people out there killing it, putting stuff out there, and you're like, damn, I can't wait for my time, or, I wish that I was, doing that too. So I try to stay away from it because I don't feel like during this phase, at least, it's not the most positive influence for me in my mental state.
It's funny you say that, because I think a lot of people would think you're one of those folks that a lot of people compare themselves to. They're like, oh my God, Neon Vines is killing it. And so it's kind of like we're all in this situation where we're all just comparing ourselves to each other. Like
everybody is.
The people that you're comparing yourself to are comparing themselves to other people. Definitely. Yeah. Any date on when you think the album will come out, or are you just
I'm hoping early next year is kind of what I'm going for, January. Yeah, that's what I'm aiming for. Not an exact date yet, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are you shooting for an album, like a full-length album, or an EP?
I'm kind of torn with that at the moment. I have about 10 songs that I feel are definitely worth releasing. It's not decided right now if I want to release them all at once, though. I kind of feel like that's a lot of songs, but then again, that's what an album is. So I'm torn. I'm torn between splitting it up. But yeah.
Have you thought about just releasing like a bunch of singles? Because I know that's what a lot of people are doing these days.
Yes. Well, I'm going to be staggering videos for each of them. So I'm doing like a live performance video for each of the tracks, which I think I'll release. Either I'll release all the songs at once and then kind of do the videos after that, or I'll just do the songs with each video. That's kind of, I'm not sure, honestly. I'm kind of playing it by ear with all that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I take it that you are kind of exploring new territory artistically with this album.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, because
there's not really like a theme or anything. Like it's not, every song is kind of like a different combination of genres, and there's even an acoustic one on there, so it's kind of all over the map in terms of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because see, when you announced that you were working on an album, it's really interesting to me because I am very curious on what a Neon Vines album would sound like, because it would be your debut album. I don't think you've ever released an album before.
No, an EP.
Not as Neon Vines, anyway.
No, yeah, actually, no, not as Neon Vines. No.
Yeah, because when people, at least when and I think most people, when people think of Neon Vines, they think of this, super talented, beautiful, over the top, but in a good way, female producer who live loops and does dance pop and is playing 6 solos on the Roli keyboard. And it's kind of like, will she be able to do that for 10 songs? There would have to be other aesthetics that are explored that we don't normally see.
Yes. Well,
you said you were doing acoustic music, right?
Yeah, it's all over the place at the moment. There's not really a cohesive theme, which I think is one of my favorite things about it, honestly. I don't know. With performing songs and doing live looping and stuff, it tends to get kind of restrictive with what you can do. So I didn't let performance logistics interfere with the vision of the album. So I haven't even really thought about how it's going to look in terms of a performance or anything like that. I'm sure I could figure something out with that, but I tried not to set those kind of limitations on myself, because sometimes if I know I'm writing a song for a YouTube video and a performance video, it changes the course of the song's development in a way, because I'm like, oh, well, I got to kind of simplify that part, because if I'm going to be live looping it, there's just some restrictions with that. So with the album and the way that I've produced it so far, it's very a lot of the songs are really complex in a way that I'm not going to be able to kind of do like from scratch, you know, in my typical kind of performance style. So it'll be interesting to see how I'm going to perform them. But for the time being, there's not really restrictions on how I've gone about writing it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's something I've always been a little curious about with you and other people who do live looping videos, like Rachel K. Collier and people like that. I always wondered if you guys produced the record and then figured out later how you were going to perform it, or you kind of were always thinking about how you were going to perform it while you were working on it. So.
Yes, it's definitely different every time. If I was commissioned in any way to make a video, like that also changes the course of like how I'll write it. You know, if I'm supposed to be featuring a certain piece of gear and I need to put an emphasis on, you know, more soloing or more intricate style percussion grooves or drum beats, like it just, that changes it as well. And there's not really like a certain way that I approach doing that. Sometimes right from the beginning of songwriting, I'm like, hell yeah, this is going to be perfect for looping. Like I know exactly how I'm going to pull this off. Sometimes I'm like, dude, I have no idea if this is even possible to like perform this track, and then find a way to do it. So most of the time, I would say I don't think about it when I'm writing. I try not to think about anything other than what I'm doing right then and there, you know? I try not to think about the future, what people are going to think about it, how I'm going to perform it, how I'm going to release it. I don't think about any of that stuff when I'm writing for the most part. I kind of I don't set bounds in terms of that. And then there's always a way to figure out how to perform it, you know? There's always a way to do that.
Yeah. Especially you, because you're very good at live looping. That is something that nobody can take away from you. You are the quintessential live looper. I'm very curious about who your influences were, because like when I hear your music, I can usually, when I hear somebody's music, I can usually tell who their influences were. But you, it's a little hard. I'm very curious, like who you grew up listening to and you know, who inspired you.
That's always a tough question, because for a couple reasons. One, like, who am I to say who has influenced me? Because do we even really know like what our influences are? Because there's music that we listen to, but things are always changing us and who we are as an artist outside of our awareness. So it's hard to even say what has influenced me or who has influenced me. But to be completely honest, I don't listen to music that much. Like nowadays, like when I was a kid, my parents used to play like Billy Joel, you know, Elton John and Stevie Wonder and all the kind of soul and classics like that. But now I find that I'm not really listening to music that often. It's not for like any conscious reason. I just kind of like prefer to be in my own thoughts most of the time.
You're listening to music all day. I mean, you're kind of doing your own music. And so by the time you finish the day, you might be a little burned out on it.
Yeah. And I also, like, if I'm into an artist and an artist catches me, like I went through a phase where do you know Alan Stone?
I don't know.
He's kind of like singer-songwriter, I guess you could say. More like soul kind of artist. But I go through phases where like somebody will just really inspire me and really strike me, and I'll just listen to them like nonstop. Like I'll literally listen to the same song like 300 times in a row and like find it just as interesting every time I listen to it. Like I get obsessed with stuff. I don't really like listening to like shuffle playlists or anything. I like consciously listening to music like for a purpose. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I don't really have like background music playing at any point in my day. Yeah,
I know how you feel. I typically listen to music only when I'm working on it, or when I'm just like, you know, at the gym or something like that. Like I don't really listen to a lot of music myself, to be honest with you, just because I'm so burned out on it. By the time I get out of the studio, it's like my ears are shot.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you are currently based in Austin, Texas, which I have a great deal of affection for because I went to school in Austin.
Yes,
and so
that's awesome. I remember you saying that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful city.
Yeah.
What made you choose Austin and not like LA or New York or Atlanta to pursue music?
I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing at all enough to like go to a big city. Like, I feel like if you're going to move out to LA, like you got to have your shit together. Like you got to know what you're doing. And I had no idea. When I moved to Austin, like I kind of just wanted a life change. It wasn't even necessarily like for music. Like it was in the back of my head, like, oh, I want to obviously pursue music as a career, but it was kind of, if I'm being honest with myself, more of just like, I want to get out of DC. Like, I want to kind of just like start new and see where it goes. And of course, like pursue music. But I still was doing just like acoustic stuff, just singing, playing guitar, playing piano and stuff like that. So I didn't know anything about Ableton or technology in terms of music technology and stuff like that. So it was a huge growth phase for me when I started getting into that. So yeah, it's amazing how fast you can get up to speed though. Like if you really just dive in on and you get obsessed with something like I usually do, like you can get really far really quickly. So it's kind of crazy.
Well, you can get very far very quickly.
I think anybody could. I think if anybody devotes themselves.
You're a rather exceptional human, Neon Vines. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you because really you are a master of so many different trades. You're almost like a polymath. You know what that is?
What is that?
A polymath is somebody who is really strong in a lot of various disciplines. That's what a polymath is.
Oh, cool.
So you learned a new word today.
I think I knew that, but I wasn't positive.
Yeah. So, because one of the disciplines that you've gotten really good at is live looping. What got you into that? Like, what got you into live looping performances specifically?
I think the whole motivation behind it was just that I want to find a way to do this all myself. And really, live looping is like the answer to that question with music. Like in terms of performance, if you want to be a one-woman band or one-man band, like you either you're going to be DJ style, pushing playback and singing along to it, or you're going to figure out a way to perform all the parts yourself, which you got to do some kind of looping to do. So when I first got to Austin, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I went out to some live venues and I saw like these solo artists having full band sound and like having fully produced tracks and actually performing it, not just pushing play, like having a launch pad or a push to or something in front of them and triggering things and playing a violin with it or, you know, kind of doing like supplemental instruments on the side. And I was like, dude, that is badass. Like, that's what I want to do. And I didn't know how the hell they were doing it. I was like trying to see like what's on the stage. Oh, there's like this rainbow looking pad thing. And I would type into Google like rainbow music device, like, you know, colorful music gear and stuff. Like I had no clue what it was. And I kind of just like got into it that way and just started researching everything, trying to figure it out. And I was like, oh, live looping, that sounds sick. And of course, I saw like, you know, some guitarists doing like the foot pedal looping and stuff like that, which is very different style of looping than Ableton. So yeah, I kind of looked into
and
both
you
of
got
those.
so good at it. You must have practiced a lot to get so good at it. I mean, it must have been an obsession.
Definitely. Yeah, that was my whole life. That was all I did not immediately when I got to Austin. I tried to figure out what I wanted to do. But once I figured out what I wanted to devote my time to, then it was just like, okay, I'm never leaving my house again. Like I'm literally just researching that, like forgetting to eat, forgetting to sleep, like kind of like crazy level, obsessed. Yeah. Not really. Not really so healthy.
Like, literally all day.
Not really the
all
healthiest.
Day long, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
And also, I as a pianist, I've been playing piano since I was 6, and
awesome.
I even went to university for piano performance.
That's awesome.
When I see your playing, it's incredible. Like, your technique is so good. Like, when you're playing keyboard, like I was watching you on Instagram play a solo or something like that on the keytar. It was the Roland.
Yes.
It was the Roland keytar, right? And I was just like, wow, her technique is so clean. It's so good.
Oh, thank you.
It really is. You've been playing piano for a while though, right?
Yes. I've been playing piano since I was 6, but I don't know if your experience with learning piano is the same as mine, but when I first started learning it, it was very structured. Like, learn this song today, and then next week it's whatever's on the next page, and then whatever's on the next page. And it was kind of, I didn't feel like I was learning music. I felt like I was just getting chops. Like, my fingers were just getting quicker, and like, but I was just memorizing other people's music. Like, I didn't feel savvy in, like, I couldn't go jam with the band or anything like that. Like, I think, and I've talked to a couple of people who went through the same experience with learning piano. It's kind of a shame that the way they teach it, because they don't teach music like a skill or like a language or like something that you can apply creatively. A lot of times it's taught as just memorize the music on the page and you're getting better at something, but it's like, what are you even really getting better at? Your fingers are just getting quicker. So I got really good chops because I studied classical piano and played all these just elaborate classical pieces for a really long time.
Like,
but
what
then
would you play?
I don't even know. Just like all the names that you can never remember because they're so obscure.
Chopin.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure you played that. Beethoven.
Yeah. All the all the typical, stuff that everybody learns, and took it pretty far. And then I just felt like before every lesson, I would just get so irritable and like never want to go. And it would just, and I kind of asked myself, it's like, it's not because I don't have a passion for music. It's just the way that I'm being taught this isn't right. And I didn't know enough to know like what it was. And I tried to talk to my piano teacher, and she was like, let's try to play songs you want to play. But even still, I was like, I just don't want to play other people's songs. Like, I want to be able to just jam out, like, and the only way that I was able to do that is to like quit literally and just like watch YouTube videos and learn music theory like that way, because I was never even taught that through piano lessons. It was seriously just memorizing stuff.
How old were you when you quit?
It was early high school, I think. Somewhere around there. Early or mid high school or something like that. Yeah, that's where I stopped traditional lessons. I just was not feeling it. Yeah. But.
Wow. It's interesting that you say that, because I'm classically trained too.
Yeah.
And when I was growing up early, now this eventually was no longer the case, but early on when I was taking piano lessons, I was discouraged from making up my own songs.
Totally.
It's like when I would sit down and try to transcribe music I heard on the radio, which is how I got good at playing by ear.
Yes.
I would be discouraged from doing that, know? And it actually, my parents were pretty thankful that I did that, because, I eventually played in church like pretty much every other black kid that takes piano lessons in the South.
Yes.
And I got good at, learning songs and all that kind of stuff. Because I don't know if you are familiar with black churches, but a lot of the time the preacher will go up there and just start singing just out the blue, like just break out into a song, and you got to follow them.
That's awesome.
And sometimes it's a song that you don't even know.
Yeah.
And so I got pretty good at harmony and hearing things and being able to provide an accompaniment to somebody singing.
Definitely.
Which I think helped me in production.
Oh,
and so a lot of the stuff that, we're discouraged from doing when we're growing up doing classical music, it's kind of like you might not want to discourage somebody from doing that, because they might end up becoming a great producer or a great songwriter someday.
Yeah. 100%. It's like the same kind of concept as learning Spanish in a classroom. At some point, it's like you got to get out there and go to a foreign country and, you know, talk to people that really know the language and kind of learn it that way. So you got to throw yourself out there and outside of just the piano books and everything else, you know, that's where you really learn the skill of playing. And I don't know, at least that's what it was like for me. I feel like all those years studying piano, it's almost like, what was I learning? How to read music, of course, on a page, and how to move my fingers really quickly. But beyond that, it's like, if you threw me into a band, it's like, at that point, I probably would not know what to do. Like, I would figure it out, but, you know, it's just kind of a shame, the way that they teach it.
I would say I kind of feel like we're shitting on the classical method of learning.
Well, I'm pretty against it, though, to be honest.
Well, I would say that what you did learn, whether you're aware of it or not, is you did develop an ear, right? Because a lot of people, because I did a Twitch stream for a while. Okay.
Yeah.
And I would let people send their music and I would give my feedback. Mm-hmm. And I could instantly tell the people who didn't grow up doing music instantly.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the ear. They would, you know, the wrong bass line for the wrong melody, right? They would, you know, they would have a bass line that didn't work or chords that didn't work. And so I could just instantly tell the people who grew up doing music from the people who couldn't, you know, who didn't. And so,
that makes sense, yeah,
obviously there's a lot of downsides to being classically trained. Believe me, I went to university and I actually quit from university because I just didn't want to go down that path anymore. But at the same time, I'm kind of glad that it helped me develop kind of a sense of what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, I don't mean
like,
to just like
your
say
music,
it's so terrible.
I don't hear that. Like, I don't hear that with your music, right? Like, I can just tell people who really didn't grow up doing music.
Yeah, definitely. I think also there's like an element of intuition to it. Like, just biologically, some people are kind of more inclined to have an ear regardless of if they grew up around music or not. I think, at least particularly actually with rhythm, I think that's the case. I think rhythm has a massive intuition element to it. Like, some people are just born without rhythm. Like, that's something I realized when I started, like, I was teaching drum lessons for a while, and like, some people just really, and I don't mean to be negative, like, because I'm an optimistic person in general, and I like to believe that anybody can do it if they put the time into it. But I think with rhythm, it's a little different.
I have had this conversation so many times with my girlfriend because she teaches ballet, and you got to have rhythm. Like, people don't realize you got to have like rhythm and sense of time when it comes to ballet, far more than like hip hop, because hip hop is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right?
Yeah.
But ballet, that music can be in 3/4 time. It can be in 7/8 time. It could be in, you know, all kinds of time signatures.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a sense of rhythm in ballet, you're not going to make it.
No.
And she teaches high school students, and she can instantly tell that, you know, okay, this student doesn't have it. And she'll be honest. I mean, like, she's been doing it for long enough to know. Yeah, so I agree with you on that. And there's a lot of other people who are drummers and things like that who have told me the exact same thing.
Yeah. I think some people just don't, you have to have like a baseline to work with. It doesn't mean that you have to be great, like starting out, of course, but there's just some...
No, I can't play drums at all, so...
But you definitely have the baseline of rhythm, like, for sure, because I've heard your music and come on, like, you clearly do. If you put the time into it, you definitely could. Let's put it that way. But there's some people that I don't think that's the case. And it's hard for me to say that because I don't want to believe that. I like to believe that anybody could do it, but it's different. It's different with rhythm. Yeah. I mean, you've
You
heard.
sound like such elitist right now. Some people just have it, and
No, I know. I don't want to come across that way, but I'm only saying it's true because I've seen it firsthand from teaching, and that's not to say you can't do music, but yeah, it's definitely something to overcome if you don't have the baseline.
Yeah. And when I used to teach piano, stuff like that, and I've run into the same thing. And it's always a tough conversation to have.
Oh, it's impossible to have. I can't tell somebody that they don't have that. I always try to find something else that they can do, because the thing with music is there's so many ways of being successful, and there's so many different skill sets within music. Just because you don't have rhythm doesn't mean you can't be a world famous musical artist. Truly, there's like an infinite number of ways of quote unquote making it, or being successful in any way. So if I'm teaching a student who doesn't have that, instead of being like, there's just this baseline that if you don't have it, you just can't do it. Instead of having that conversation, I try to find another avenue for them in music. Because there's always something to work with everybody. So I try to, reroute.
Yeah, reroute. Definitely. Like if somebody really wants to be in the music industry, but they don't have the musical skills, they might have the business skills to be a manager, or to be an A&R, or 100%. To work as an executive. I know a lot of people who are now managers. And in fact, my very first manager was somebody who he knew that he didn't have it, because he would listen to music on the radio and he'd be like, I can never do that, and he had great business sense. He had a great business mind. And so he started a management firm and took on artists rather. Yeah. And that was an avenue that he decided to take, and he was happy. He was, Yeah.
That's amazing.
And speaking of great business mind, like you actually are a very good marketer. Like one of the things that you've done a very good job at is marketing your brand. What tips would you give to musicians out there for kind of marketing themselves and putting themselves out there?
Well, the most important thing is to do whatever it is that you're doing for the right reasons, which the right reasons is something in line with it being your passion, or it being the exact way that you want to say what it is you want to say, whether that's the genre or whether that's a particular presentation, you're into doing the MPC kind of thing, playing beats on Instagram, doing beat videos, like whatever it is that you're doing, do it because you want to do it, not because you think there's some trend to follow, or because you think other people are going to vibe with it. This is popular right now, so I got to do this, or everybody says to do this, so I got to do that. Like, I think everybody has an inner voice that will tell you what it is you need to do. And I think a lot of times we ignore it, which is doing ourselves such a disservice. And we ignore it because it's hard to ignore other people telling you what to do and this is the way to do it. And especially when you hear somebody who's accomplished saying, this is what you need to do. So yeah, basically the number one thing is do it without any expectations of results. Like, do whatever it is for the pure reason that you love it. Like when I first started putting out videos, I didn't even have a fleeting thought of how many people are going to see this, or how am I going to get an audience, or like what's my market. Like never even a thought of that. Like I just put my first video online and like didn't even check the views or anything, like didn't even think about that, because I was just doing it to share what I had been spending my time on, the last couple of months, because I loved it so much. But if you start from a place of authenticity with yourself, the universe, like not to get too spiritual, but the universe will show you what your market is, and it will show you what you need to focus on in terms of how to get more exposure for that. So if you're starting from a place that's pure like that, there will be plenty of clues that will show you. Like for me, for example, Roli reached out to me not long after the first video that I released with the Seaboard. And I was like, oh my God, these are the makers of the Seaboard. Like, this is such a big deal. Like, I was so humbled and shocked that they would even notice me or find me. And then it kind of like planted this seed. I was like, oh, what if I kind of like got them to share my video and then they shared it? And I was like, whoa, I got a lot of followers when they shared that. Like, maybe I could kind of lean into this side of things. Like, I never thought about sponsorships or endorsements or anything, but because, and this is what I believe, because what I was doing was for authentic and pure reasons, these opportunities presented themselves. Like if I had started off being like, oh, EDM is really popular right now, so I got to start off with a track like that, I don't know if it would have unfolded organically the way that it did. So yeah, I guess that's a long-winded way of saying just stay true to yourself. Like, stay true to yourself, but also pay attention to who's responding to your content. There's so many different ways of making it, like I said. And like, I could have gotten into film. I could have started writing for films. I could have started writing jingles for commercials. I could have started doing sample packs, which I am doing a couple in the works now, but there's just so many ways of doing it. It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Dude, a Neon Vine sample pack. Wow. I want one. Where did the name Neon Vines come from?
My brother actually randomly thought of it. So I was trying to think of what to call myself. And I think that's one of the hardest things, to figure out what to call yourself. And I was just hitting a wall and nothing felt like I identified with it. And after a couple of months of just not thinking of anything, I asked my brother John, I was like, hey man, like if you think of anything, like what I can call myself, I'm trying to be like the electronic chick that like plays all this gear. Like I kind of tried to tell him what like my vision was. And then the first thing he texts me is Neon Vines. And I was like, oh, that's pretty good. But keep thinking, see if you come up with anything else. Everything else he thought of was garbage. So I was like, it kind of grew on me. I was like, okay, maybe I'll just go with the first one. Everything else is bad. So
yeah, it's a cool name. It fits
Thanks.
like the aesthetic perfectly, because you play on really colored, like bright stuff.
Yeah.
Like usually the stuff that you play on is black.
Right.
And apparently you have an affinity for black gear. You really like black colored gear.
That is my thing for sure. I love contrast.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that you had mentioned, that you play drums, and I remember you told me that you were even better at drums than you are at keyboard, which scares the crap out of me. I haven't heard you play drums. Are we ever going to see you play drums on YouTube?
Yes. Either my next video or the one after that, I will do a drum solo. I have been wanting to do that for a long time. Yeah, I considered...
Because your finger drumming game is pretty damn good. Like when you're doing the live looping, it's like the finger drumming, it's like, okay, it's on point. So it's pretty damn good.
I feel like the skills that I developed in learning drums and rhythm have been a greater asset to me than the skills I learned with piano. And that's saying a lot, because of course, with writing music, you need to have an understanding of something melodic, some kind of melodic instrument. So yeah, I just feel like rhythm for me is just the foundation, and everything else is kind of like a supplement building off of that. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like that.
And you also code.
A little bit. Yeah. I code, like, I'm not like spending my time doing it. My brother actually is an amazing coder, but I know enough
I'm a
to
coder
do
too.
the
That's what I do by day. That's my
do.
day job. I'm a software developer.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I kind of...
Because I actually learned that when you were doing the 4 producers 1 sample, you had coded the software to where you could import your own samples. Into the, I don't know what VST you were using.
So what kind of software developer are you?
Web development.
Have you tried to apply any of the skills to like music in any way? No, you should.
I haven't, because I just specialize in web development, like PHP, JavaScript, C#, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would imagine, you were coding in C++, I would think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I know some C++, but it's not my main thing. In fact, I had Imagiro on here, who literally created his own VST. I'll send you a link to it because I think you'll really like it.
That's what I want to do.
I like to cross promote. So I like to promote other guests
who
I've had on the show to other guests.
What kind of VST did he make? Link.
It's a piano VST.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. He's a British producer. He's an excellent producer. And he is a great developer. He's like a great computer programmer and everything.
Wow.
And he created a VST instrument and he coded it himself.
Wow.
It was really impressive.
That's amazing.
I might try it. I mean, if you can do it, I can do it, right?
Yeah. Also, there is massive money to be made with plugins. Like, whoa, money.
Yeah. But see what I'm talking about? You're a polymath. Like, you play piano, you code, you are a great marketer. I mean, you have so many different skills.
I'm just a control freak. I just don't want to ask for help if I feel like there's any feasible way that I could do it myself, kind of thing, which is like kind of a good and a bad thing, I think. Because I do see at some point in my career, I'm definitely going to need a team of people. Like, it's actually getting to the point now where I've been thinking about it more and more, but yes, I do most of the things myself, but also at the same time, I am partnering with like brands and stuff, like last year, partnering with brands, like that can just explode your career. It's amazing how much it really can help. If you partner in the right ways and you have them feature you and you can get so I don't want it to seem like I'm doing it all myself per se. Like, I try to do as much as I can myself, but at the end of the day, a huge reason that I've developed the following that I have is because of partnerships. Like, as in the 4 producers, 1 sample with Andrew, that was explosive for my career. Like,
how did that happen? How did that
he
come
randomly
about?
Reached out to me. He's very in the know with like what's going on in the industry. He finds a lot of amazing talent. Like, all the people that he as part, like, do you know Moon Hooch by chance? Yeah, he showed me them. Like, there's a lot of artists that I've discovered from seeing him feature them on his channel, and I'm like, oh, how is he like finding these people? So I don't know how Andrew, like, talk about polymath. Is that the word? Polymath. He
You're gonna use that word all the time now, huh?
I don't know how he finds those extra hours in the day to do everything that he does. He's like talent scouting on the side. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, it was an amazing blessing to work with him on that series.
And he's really good about reaching out to female producers too. He's very forward thinking in that way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So do you do visual art too?
I do. Yeah.
Because I've seen you have these little owls and they're beautiful. Like, you paint these little owls, and I wanted one, but they were sold out.
Oh, I might do another run of them, but yeah, thank you though. I don't know. I'm not like great at it, but I enjoy it, and that's why I do it. Like, my house is covered in just random drawings on the walls and paintings and stuff everywhere. Just fun stuff.
Oh, you draw too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, I need to see some of your art.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's really good.
I don't know.
I would imagine it's really good.
It's okay. I enjoy making it, so that's what counts, I guess.
All right. That sounds great to me. So we ask this question pretty much every episode of the podcast, but how did you get started in music? What is the Neon Vines origin story? How did you go from a little girl playing hopscotch on the playground to the great musician that we see today? I don't know if you played hopscotch, but I mean...
I think probably did. I would say if Is this a only voice podcast, or can people see what I'm about to show? Because I was going to show like the graph. So basically the graph of my career, just to describe it, is like nothing was happening for so long. Like I was doing music my whole life, but I wasn't going anywhere. I had no goals. I had no clue what I was going to do musically until like literally 5 years ago. So I was acquiring these random skills that I didn't know what they were going to ultimately apply to. It was kind of just satisfying like my passion, but my passion had no direction. It was kind of a passion without a reason. Do you know what I mean? Like I didn't know where it was going. And I guess what pushed me to realize that purpose and the direction and ultimately Neon Vines was pushing myself as far out of my comfort zone as I possibly could, which was pointing on a map and saying, I'm moving to Austin, shipping all of my things to Austin before I had a place to live. So all my stuff was like going to Austin. I was like gonna maybe have to get a storage facility or, figure it out. Luckily, it all kind of like aligned in a beautiful way, which was, lucky. But I think just being alone in Austin, not knowing a single person there, pushed me to be like, okay, what am I doing? Why did I do this? How can I use my passion and how can I turn that into something that can actually make me money? So I think kind of having a lot on the line, like I had enough money to get me through 6 months of no income because I had saved up for my last job. So I knew like within 6 months, I need to have something that's going to be bringing in money consistently. Otherwise I'm screwed. So it kind of lit a fire under me.
When you moved to Austin, where were you moving from?
DC area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, there was kind of like a little bit of pressure, and I think pressure can be a good thing. And I think it can bring out greatness in people. And I think like as much as people hate deadlines and stuff like that, like it really can be an asset to kind of get you moving and figuring it out. Because I think before that, I was a little too comfortable. Like I had a job that was, I was working in a cubicle in DC. It was such a shitty job, honestly. But it financially, I was doing okay. And that kind of got me to a place of complacency. And that eventually ignited such an anger in me at myself for getting comfortable with that and being okay with mediocrity, basically, and not pushing myself and not seeing where it could go. And that anger is what made me walk into my boss's office one day and just be like, I can't do this.
It's a weak notice, huh?
I can't. I want to do music. And I remember he was just like, music? You do music? He's like, what are you going to do with music? I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of years of studying music, but it was without any kind of direction. And also in a kind of scattered, disorganized way. So I consider my journey beginning about 5 years ago. So a lot can happen.
Happened 5 years ago.
Yeah, a lot can happen in a short period of time, but it's all, I don't necessarily believe in having goals per se. Like I don't, because goals I think in a lot of ways can be restrictive. And I think if you get too hung up on exactly where you want to go, exactly what you want to be, you miss out on the adaptive requirements that you need to have to get through the industry, because so many opportunities that came to me that took me to where I am now were random and unexpected and not my objective. And because I didn't have concrete goals, I was easily able to kind of navigate that and say, oh, that seems interesting. I'm going to go this direction, and it kind of, you have to be fluid. I think that's a big part of it. But I don't know. It's hard to say because you have to have some kind of direction that you're moving, but just not necessarily a concrete objective. So it's a little contradictive. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, you mentioned that you worked in a cubicle. I worked in a cubicle too.
Yeah.
When I decided to move to Atlanta, I was doing music too. I was producing music. In fact, I was working with artists while working in a freaking cubicle at Sitel.
Oh my God.
So it's really interesting because I would literally, send music to freaking Usher, and then I'd go to work the next morning at freaking Sitel.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was what was going on in 2009. Wow. And I eventually put in my 2-week notice, which I think at that point, because my boss was very supportive of my music, and I think he knew that I was going to leave.
Yeah.
And I am very thankful for the job. As much as I hated it, I'm thankful because it allowed me to have an income to be able to save up and move. So as miserable as your job was, it was a blessing, because there's a lot of people out there.
Yeah, don't you?
There's a lot of people out there, especially right now. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you keep going. Sorry, I was interrupting.
No, you were going to ask me something. Go ahead.
No, I just feel like having that job is kind of the reason that I took the leap, because it was like, okay, I can always do this. I started feeling like I can always have this comfortable kind of career and figure out a way to make money consistently. There's it's always a way to do that, but it's I don't know. It made me internally so mad, at myself, and that's kind of what pushed me to pursue it. I don't know if without that, having that kind of contrast and that point of reference of the alternative, this is the alternative. It's well, why not go for it if that's the alternative? So I think having that point of reference is crucial, honestly. Yeah, at least it was for me.
And plus, on top of that, when you move to another state, which is what we both did, you did it 5 years ago.
You have a really similar journey to me. That's crazy.
We do. We have a very similar journey. We both grew up doing music, and we both left home, and you went to Texas and I left Texas, but
and went to the East Coast.
Well, I guess you could call Atlanta the East Coast. I mean,
is it not? Is it more like the South?
Yeah, I mean, the only people who call Atlanta the East Coast are people that don't live in Atlanta. So
okay, good to know. I learned it in a safe place.
Zone. Yeah. But I think one of the things, and I'm sure you could relate to this, that moving does is it forces you to get on your job, because it's kind of like, I don't have a safety net anymore.
Yeah. Also, I think it makes you more creative to go to an unfamiliar place, because I think your brain is kind of trying to figure out what's all these new things around me. So you're kind of really hyper vigilant, and you're really taking in your surroundings more than if you're in a comfortable, complacent kind of little world, which is where I was. So I think, switching things up and moving, it can really boost your creativity, changing your surroundings.
Now, we both have something else in common, too, is that we both started on the MPC.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, you started on the MPC 1, is that correct?
No, MPC-X. Yeah.
MPC-X? Oh, that's the even better one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I actually started on the MPC 3000, which I'm sure you don't even remember.
I've seen pictures of it.
I'm not sure if you're old enough to remember the MPC 3000, which came out in 94.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so now I wasn't producing in 94. I actually got it in 2000 because a friend of mine who was my next door neighbor, was going off to the army. He was going off to Afghanistan. Wow. And he actually just came back from Afghanistan. He had been there for 20 years. Crazy, right? And so he was going off to Afghanistan, and he just let me have his MPC.
Wow.
He didn't, yeah. And so I got to learn on it. And
that's so cool.
Do you still use the MPC?
Oh, yeah. All the time. I didn't know enough at the time when I bought it. I just thought, oh, you got to get the best of the best, because that's the only way. That was what I used to think. But now more than ever, it's no, more is not better. Like, I just realized that now after, of course, like having a spaceship of gear. I just realized like the most expensive option is not always the best. And a lot of times those are the pieces that actually fail me the most, ironically. So like all of my most expensive gear is like the stuff that's let me down, kind of ironic. But yeah, wow. I didn't know enough when I got it. I just thought you have to get the best of the best. I don't know why. I was just in that mindset, but yeah.
And you were told the MPC was the best of the best?
The MPC-X was...
The MPC-X?
After doing like research at the time, I was like, what is the best hardware for making beats? And that's kind of like was the consensus on the internet. So I was like, well, I'm getting it. So yeah.
That's actually really surprising because coming from somebody, you know, as somebody who did use the MPC up until around like 2006, the MPC just feels kind of, now I haven't used the MPC-X to be fair. Like I haven't used an MPC. Like the last MPC that I used was the MPC 4000, which came out like I believe in 2004. And I only used it for like 2 years. I spent a fortune on it. And I got it like right when it came out because the 4000 came out, I believe, in 2004. And I got it around that time. I used it like a year and a half to 2 years. And I eventually started moving to software. I moved to, you know, Cakewalk and I eventually, I used FL Studio for a little bit. It was called Fruity Loops at the time. And then I moved to Cakewalk and, you know, that sort of thing. And what do you feel like there's an advantage to using the MPC over using Ableton? Because you also use the Akai Force as well, which is kind of the same thing.
I haven't been using the Force as much recently for like a really petty and dumb reason, but mostly it's just because the lights don't show up well on camera, so I can't really film it. So I like to stick with the MPC, but the Force is amazing. I love the Force. I use the MPC every day pretty much, just because I guess I'm just really used to the workflow at this point. But also I really love XO by Excellent Audio. Do you use XO? Do you have it?
I've used it a few times. I haven't used it a ton, but I've used it before.
There's so many ways of making beats. I mean, you definitely don't need an MPC. I'm not saying that. But I guess that's just like my go-to for when I want to start with the beat. I usually start there. Or MPC or XO. Yeah.
Do you remember the first YouTube video of yours that went viral?
Yes.
I remember the very first video I saw of you, and it was you covering that Calvin Harris song. Like that was the very first time I saw you. And I was just like blown away. I remember being so blown away that I shared it on my Facebook page. I was like, holy shit. And I literally,
that's awesome.
And I think my comment is actually still there, but I remember I just posted like how. Like, that's all I put.
That's funny.
Was that the first one? I believe that was the first one that went viral, was it?
It's either that one or Lay Low. Lay Low got picked up on Reddit randomly and went viral. And that was like shortly after the Andrew Huang one aired. So I kind of feel like maybe somebody found it from that. I'm not sure which one was first, but I feel like all of it happened around the time of the Andrew Huang for Producers thing. So I feel like it's all tied to that, honestly. I feel like it's all related somehow. Yeah. That's why it's like partnerships and collabs are what propel you. Because I had a decent amount of videos that were just like going nowhere on YouTube for like 2 years. That had maybe at most one had like 30,000. I think Lalo got to like 30,000, but most of the other ones were just like 2,000 views and like nothing was happening. I never even checked my YouTube because I was like, whatever, you know.
You didn't even check it?
No, just like I checked it one day. I was like, oh, 30,000. I was like, damn, it's pretty cool. But yeah, I just didn't think it would. YouTube is still honestly a little bit of a mystery to me how it works, but I think a lot of it is just partnering with big channels or big brands and stuff like that. Yeah, that's
All
big
right.
help.
I want to close this out with something I've never done before. You're going to be the guinea pig of this, okay? And if it works for you, I'm going to do it with other guests. We're going to do a little lightning round. Word associations, okay? I'm just going to say something. I want you to give your thoughts on it, okay?
Okay.
Word associations. Here we go. Ableton.
Legendary. Do I say one word, or do I
you can just say whatever you want. Like when I say Ableton, what do you think of? I thought
a bunch of positive words when you said it. I just love Ableton. I'm obsessed. Yeah.
Auto-tune.
Vocal Synth 2 is my favorite pitch correction.
Yes.
Auto-tune's cool too. Yeah. Okay, so,
I'm falling in love with that one too. I used Auto-tune for like 15 years, and I really
Auto-tune, yeah. It's cool, but it has a very cliche kind of sound sometimes, I think.
Yeah, Waves Tune is good too, as is Melodyne. Yeah, those are good too. There's a lot of good alternatives out there. The Grammys.
Politics. I feel like
boy, your facial expression just changed drastically when I said the Grammys.
I think a lot of that is just, I don't know. It's not really where you would go to say like, oh, these must be the best songs in the world. Then if they got a Grammy, it must be the best there is. Like, I don't think like that.
Come on. There's you know, if you won a Grammy, you'd be up there. Dude. I want to thank God. I want to thank my mama.
Of course, but it's not the ultimate, like, that's what the goal is, at least for me. I don't know. I mean, dude, yeah, don't get me wrong. I would be stoked.
All right. Radio.
I don't know enough about it, honestly. I haven't pursued that. Back in the day, I tried to like get some airplay and stuff, and I realized there's a lot of scammers in the market of like radio and getting airplay and stuff. There are so many people that are like, oh yeah, just pay me $5,000 and I'll get you streams, and it's just like bullshit. So I really don't know much about it, but I do know that there's a lot of people trying to scam in that world.
Spotify.
I need to put more songs on Spotify. That's what I think when you say that.
Yeah, that one song, man, Lay Low.
God, it's hanging out there by itself.
You've been laying low for a minute, Neon.
It's been laying low. I know. Oh my God. Yeah, that's been on my list for a long time. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, this one's going to be fun. Men.
I don't have the time or desire. I don't know. I mean, in theory, yeah, wouldn't that be wonderful if that just like fell into my life and happened? But I'm definitely not pursuing it. Yeah.
Mixing and mastering.
I think about how it's a very technical mindset for me. So when I decide, like once I'm done kind of songwriting, getting all the ideas out there, and it's like, well, now it's time to get into mixing, mastering, my whole mindset shifts and I see the song from a bird's eye view, kind of a totally different perspective. Yeah.
Last one, Neon Vines.
I feel good about where I am right now. But I also, I don't want this to be like, this is not enough for me. Like I don't watch my own videos ever. I'm very much over it. I feel very like on to the next.
Are you self-critical?
Yeah, I'm kind of just like over it. It's not like I'm unhappy with what I've done. I'm just like, I'm very much like, okay, that happened. What now? You know, what's happening next? So I don't do it enough, but you know, I think it's good to kind of sit back and be like, you know what, I feel good about where I am, but I'm kind of like I torture myself a little bit kind of person. Like I'm very much like, no, that's not good enough. I need to move on to something else. So while I'm happy with what's happened so far in my career and I feel good about the direction it's going, I am nowhere near where I want to be at all. So yeah, it's an interesting little
Neon
relationship I have with
Vines.
that.
Neon Vines, let me tell you, this has been great. Thank you so much for
Thank you so
taking
much
time
for
out of
having
your
me.
busy schedule to do this with me. And
Yeah, of course.
I know that you're killing it, and I can't wait. And I know many cannot wait until you put that album out and we hear your great music.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I have so much respect for you too. So, it means a lot, everything that you said to me. Truly, it really does mean a lot. So thank you.
Well,
Thank
I'm
you
honored.
for the kind words.
And that is going to do it, guys. Thank you all so much for a great first season of this podcast. Your support means the world to me. I want to thank every one of you who shared it, who told your friends about it, and those of you who listened every week. I want to thank every one of the guests who I've had on this show who has been so gracious to devote your time and wisdom. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I could not have done this without you. I know this audience right now is still small, but I really mean it when I say you all keep me going. There is more in store because we're going to hit the ground running in a couple of weeks for season 2. I'll see you guys then. Until that time, you all take care and stay blessed.
It's just